SpaceX is next. Elon Musk. Where's our SpaceX? There he is.
All right, I think just waiting for the slides to stop. Well, I think, yeah, there we go. That's just a photo of Falcon 9 on the launch pad at Cape. We'll be carrying cargo to the space station. We'll do our first test flight later this year, carrying our Dragon spacecraft, and then next year we'll be doing our first flights that actually go to the space station, carrying cargo and bring it back. Before I jump into this, one thing I think it's very important for the public to realize is that we're currently on a path to sole source human spaceflight to the Russians. I don't think this is really, people have quite realized this in the general public, but that's what's going to happen right after the space shuttle retires. We are sole sourced to the Russians and will be so until there is an alternative. We believe we can eliminate that gap or substantially reduce it at least, and I think it's be money very well spent to have an American entrant into that race rather than the current sole source situation. Next slide. SpaceX is about 7 years old. The primary goal of SpaceX is actually reliability. It's not reducing cost, although we do reduce cost quite a bit as well. We're about 800 employees. We're growing 50% a year. We're in California, Texas, and Florida primarily. And really the whole purpose of SpaceX from the beginning has been human spaceflight. That's the very reason I founded the company and created it. So, next slide. We've been able to get a lot of customers on board SpaceX. So in addition to NASA and the Defense Department, we've gotten Sweden, Malaysia, Canada, a number of commercial providers, all of whom have done technical and financial due diligence on SpaceX and concluded that SpaceX is a wise bet and put down deposits for launch. Next slide. We reached orbit last year. With Falcon 1. The Falcon 1 is a complete ground-up development. So we developed the main engine, the upper stage engine, the structures, the avionics, the launch infrastructure, and launched a rocket with cryogenic propellant from a remote tropical island, which is not easy. So it's also important to note that there are huge lessons learned in Falcon 1 going to Falcon 9. In fact, much of the same hardware that's in Falcon 1 goes into Falcon 9. As far as the engine is concerned, I think there was some questions raised earlier about development of engines. There have only been 3 engines developed in the United States that have seen orbital flight in the since I think the space shuttle main engine about almost 30 years ago is when it was developed. One of them was the RS-68, which is used in the Delta IV. The other 2 are the Merlin and Kestrel engines developed by SpaceX, which are hydrocarbon engines. Next slide. Here you can see some pictures of Falcon 1 getting prepared for its next flight. They'll be carrying a satellite for Malaysia. Next slide. I'm going to go very quickly through the slides since we only have 20 minutes. We've made substantial reductions in cost across the board in our engines, structures, avionics, and launch operation. Again, I'm going to be re-emphasizing this many times. Falcon 9 is designed from the beginning to be a human-carrying vessel. It also has something which people have taken for granted in airliners, which is engine-out capability. So I think a lot of people would be uncomfortable getting on an airliner with one engine, and yet that's par for the course in rockets. In fact, in a lot of rockets, it's even mission fails. With Falcon 9, we've designed it just in a way similar to the Saturn 1 and Saturn 5, which had flawless flight records, which is if you lose an engine, doesn't matter. You can still complete the mission. Next slide. There's a lot of videos on our website if people are curious. Just go to SpaceX.com and you can see the engine test videos. This year, SpaceX will manufacture more rocket engines than the rest of U.S. production combined. In fact, more than any country except Russia. Next year, we expect to exceed Russia. Next slide. That's the base of Falcon 9. There's similar resemblance to the base of, say, Saturn 1, which had 8 engines rather than our 9. Some pretty epic engine firing videos, some very funny videos on YouTube of the locals observing the engine firings. Next slide. Some pictures of our factory in Hawthorne. You can see our engine production line. Next slide. Here's Falcon 9 going through final qualification. We expect to be ready to launch Falcon 9 later this year, and hopefully we'll have the first and second flight stages on the pad by the end of summer. So you can see pictures of the factory in various stages of qualification. Next slide. I'm going to go very quickly. So there's Falcon 9 on the launch pad at Cape Canaveral. Next slide. More Cape Canaveral stuff. Next slide. There's Dragon. That's a full flight fidelity structural test unit of our Dragon spacecraft. Again, our Dragon spacecraft is designed explicitly to meet the NASA human rating standards. And we're 90% complete on that qualification. It's worth noting that Dragon has 5 windows, 4 windows I should say, and you don't need windows for cargo. Say the obvious. Next slide. Dragon going through structural qualification testing. The 2 driving load cases for Dragon are the worst case abort. So if the system aborts at the worst case and you have these reentry loads, you can be coming in at 15 or 16 Gs. So it's designed to meet those loads. It's also designed to meet the loads associated with a launch escape tower. Next slide. Some more SpaceX hardware. Almost forgot to mention our Draco engine. That's our in-space engine. So SpaceX actually does a 3rd engine, which is used for in-space maneuvering, primarily for docking and orbit translation. Next slide. More hardware. There's our heat shield on the bottom left. We developed the Pika X, which is an improved form of Pika in conjunction with NASA Ames. Next slide. More hardware. This is the communications unit for communicating between Dragon and the space station, and that will be delivered at the end of the month. It's quite a tricky thing to do. Also the crew command panel. Next slide. Our Dragon Eye, this is a LiDAR system that's used to image the space station as Dragon approaches the space station. It's got to figure out relative orientation and the approach vectors, and then plot a course to berth with the space station. That's going to get flown on the STS-127, which is currently on the pad. So it'll be tested before we even do our first Dragon mission. Next slide. We've completed the Space Station Safety Review Panel Phase 1 and most of 2. We expect to finish Phase 3 in early next year. It's important to appreciate that Dragon has to, even for cargo, Dragon has to be human rated for the approach to space station, for being at space station, and for leaving space station, because there are people in the space station. Next slide. We've done 14 of the 22 milestones on schedule, all financing rounds, and all design reviews through critical design review. There have been several major hardware milestones also in there. There's going to be some slips in the remaining milestones, but we're talking about slips that are measured in months, not years, which is relatively minor in the space industry. And so we're expecting to complete all of our demonstrations next year, by summer next year. Next slide. As I mentioned, crew capability is the very reason SpaceX was founded. So we will do whatever we need to do to make this happen. Yeah. Next slide. So one of the advantages of using the Dragon for crew is that it will already have been flown many times with cargo. So you have essentially the same vehicle, the same spacecraft, and the same rocket that it will have flown many times before you even put people on board. This is a huge risk retirement approach. So it's should be pretty safe by the time you even want to put people on it. Next slide. Regarding the factors of safety, again, we're designed to the 1.4 factor of safety throughout the vehicle unequivocally. The ELVs would require some work, at least in some places, to get to the 1.4. The Falcon 9 does not. It was designed from that for the beginning. So let's see. Yeah. Next slide. So in terms of what is necessary to go from the cargo Dragon to the crew Dragon, there's only one major development item, and that is the launch escape system, and that drives the schedule for completion of crew capability, and that is an approximately 24-month development cycle. So we've already done the preliminary design on that. We need to complete the design, qualify it, and test it. So that's 2 years, basically, from the moment NASA says go. It's about 2 years minimum to get that capability working. If you add some margin in there, you add another sort of 6 to 9 months of margin. That says, I think, comfortably under 3 years to get from today to get human capability. So that really eliminates the gap from our standpoint. I mean, I do agree, by the way, with having both Soyuz flights and COTS crew flights at the same time. It was planned for the same year because you want to make sure that there's no gap there. So I do agree with the approach of that Space Operations Director of NASA has to purchase Soyuz flights. I would do the same in their position. I just think it makes sense to turn on commercial crew capability and have it planned for that same period of time.
For 300 million.
We can also do what's called a lifeboat Dragon, which is just an emergency escape vehicle. We can do that a lot faster than we could do the ascent phase because no launch escape system is needed. So we could do the lifeboat Dragon in 1.5 years, which would improve the capability of the space station because our Dragon crew capsule is capable of carrying 7 people rather than the 3 people for the Soyuz escape vehicle. Next slide. So basically, there's a lot of value that's been delivered under the COTS program. I mean, if you compare this to almost any other space development program, you say, what did the government get for $278 million? Actually, I haven't even paid $278 million yet. $230 million. This would be pretty darn high on the list of highest value for money. So, yeah. All right, next slide. So, yeah, next slide. I think I've probably got like 2 minutes left. I think we've seen this slide. Next slide. So, COTS is really an enabling function for NASA. By having COTS, commercial crew servicing of low Earth orbit activity at an affordable cost, that really enables NASA to go beyond low Earth orbit, to go to the moon, to go to Mars, and maybe go to visit an asteroid. On the other hand, if NASA's budget has to be dedicated to low Earth orbit servicing, then that's all NASA can do. And the reality is that NASA is not going to get a giant budget increase. So it seems like the only way forward, the only way we're going to do exciting things in human spaceflight is if commercial companies handle the low Earth orbit stuff and NASA focuses on the stuff beyond low Earth orbit. Next slide. And that's it. Any questions?
Great. Elon, thank you. Other questions? Please, Chris.
Thank you. On one of your early slides on the Falcon 9, you included the statement that it has a greater than 5 times cost reduction compared to domestic competitors. I simply don't understand what that's trying to tell me. Can you elaborate on it?
had an equivalent ELV, you'd be paying closer to 200 million, or just below 200 million.
Thank you.
Particularly when you factor in the fact there's Air Force infrastructure payments that have to be divided by those flights, which we do not receive.
You're right.
Thanks. Thank you for your presentation. Congratulations on your success to date. I had a question on Falcon 9 and Dragon. Assuming COTS-D goes forward, do you have a test program identified for Falcon 9 before you'd have confidence to put a crew on board?
Yeah, absolutely.
How many flights do you envision having for that test program?
Well, I think we'd want to have at least a dozen flights of Falcon 9 before we put crew on board. But that's not going to be a problem because, I mean, we have right now 21 flights on manifest already.
Okay, and I assume also you'd have a test program for your crew escape system?
Yes.
And would that be part of that test program? Would it actually, would you test that system off of Falcon 9?
Yeah, there are two major tests. There's the pad abort test, which we would not need the rocket for. That could be done at White Sands or something like that. And then there's a high altitude abort, which is really the same cost as a mission, if not slightly greater. So we'd want to do both those tests.
Okay, and then once you get a manned capsule, how many flights do you envision manned flights into orbit before you declare operational capability?
Well, for that we would consult with NASA. I think that would be as much NASA's call as, if not more, than ours. But I figure at least 2 or 3. Because there's very little difference between our crew versus cargo version, it's kind of a different situation than many developments before, which have been dedicated to crew or dedicated to cargo.
Okay, thanks.
I think that gets it. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it, Elon.